He had been lied to twice. The first time cost him his marriage. A woman who had smiled at the cameras and looked at the bank statements when she thought he wasn't watching. The second time cost him 2 years of believing he had found someone different. He had not found someone different. He had found someone better at hiding it. So on a Monday morning, James Whitfield, worth $9 billion, owner of Whitfield Industries, the most powerful man in the city, put on old clothes, worn jeans, a faded jacket, the hands of someone who worked outside. He drove to his own estate in a van from a landscaping company he had purchased specifically for this purpose. And he became Daniel, the new gardener. He had 2 children, Oliver, 8, Clara, 6, and he had a fiancée, a woman named Victoria, who was warm and kind when he was present and whom he needed to know the truth about before he gave her his children's lives. He was going to watch from the garden. He was going to find out who Victoria really was when James Whitfield was not in the room. What he found was not what he expected, and neither was the person who found it first. The maid had been there for 3 months. She had seen everything, and she had been waiting for someone to finally look. James Whitfield had not done anything impulsive in 11 years. 11 years since the divorce. Since the particular education of watching someone you had trusted completely reveal themselves to be someone entirely other than who you had believed. He had operated on the principle that every significant decision required information, and that information required time, and that time required patience. And that patience was a thing he had developed, like most useful things, through necessity rather than preference. He was not a patient man by nature. He was a man who had learned patience because the alternative was to keep making the same mistake. The mistake had a name. He was good at reading situations and bad at reading people who were performing for him. He understood this about himself with the clear-eyed honesty he tried to bring to his own limitations. He read companies correctly. He read markets correctly. He read the particular mathematics of risk and return with the accuracy that had produced $9 billion. He read people who wanted something from him incorrectly, consistently, because wanting produced performance, and performance was what he saw, and the person behind the performance was invisible to him until it was too late. Victoria Marsh had been in his life for 8 months. She was 34. Beautiful in the specific way of someone who understood beauty as a tool and deployed it accordingly. Warm in the public way of someone who had learned that warmth was the currency that purchased access. She had been introduced through his sister, which he had taken as a recommendation. It was not. And she had been, for 8 months, exactly what he had needed her to be, which was the problem. He had learned to distrust exactness. I need to know, he had told his solicitor, who had received the plan with the expression of someone who had heard many plans and was reserving judgment before the wedding, before she has legal access to the children's arrangements. You could simply investigate. I've investigated, James said. The investigation shows a person who has done nothing wrong. I need to see the person when the investigation isn't looking. And the gardener plan, James said, is me, in my own garden, watching. The solicitor had looked at him for a long moment. And your children, he said, Oliver and Clara, are the reason, James said. That I need to know. He started on a Monday. The estate manager, a man named Richards who had been with the family for 15 years, and who had received the instruction to hire a gardener named Daniel without asking questions, and had not asked questions, had processed the paperwork and assigned the south gardens, and provided a schedule that kept Daniel at a sufficient distance from the main house to be plausible while providing, through the particular geometry of the estate's sight lines, clear observation of everything that mattered. James had done the geometry himself. He knew his own estate. Victoria arrived on Tuesdays and Thursdays, her official schedule, the one James had established, the visits that allowed her to spend time with Oliver and Clara, and to be, in all the visible ways, the woman he was considering making their stepmother. She did not know about Daniel. Nobody knew about Daniel except Richard's and James's solicitor, and a woman named Grace, the maid who had been with the household for 3 months and who had, on his first day, looked at him with the expression of someone who was seeing more than she was being shown. He had not expected that. He had expected the staff to see a gardener. Grace had seen something else. She had said nothing. She had looked at him once, briefly, in the corridor between the kitchen garden and the service entrance, with the particular expression of someone who has identified a situation and is deciding what to do with the identification. She had made tea. She had brought a cup to the south garden without being asked. She had set it beside him and said, without looking at him, "The children are in the east garden this morning. Victoria arrives at 2, and walked away. He had held the cup for a long time. Her name was Grace Reyes. She was 29 years old. The agency file said, reliable, experienced, excellent references, available immediately. She had started 3 months ago, which meant she had been in this household for 12 weeks before James arrived in old jeans and a faded jacket and began working in the south garden. She had known within 40 minutes, not because the disguise was poor. It was, for a man who had never worked as a gardener, a credible approximation. The hands were wrong, to smooth under the calluses he was developing. But hands were something you had to look for. She had looked. She had looked because something had caught her attention on the first day. The way he moved through the garden with the particular assessment of someone who knew a space, rather than someone learning it. The way he looked at the house rather than the plants when he thought nobody was watching. She had cross-referenced the photograph on the Whitfield Industries website in the evening. She had been certain by 9 o'clock. She had not told anyone. She had thought about why she wasn't telling anyone, had sat with the question honestly, the way she sat with all important questions, and had arrived at the conclusion that the reason was the children. She had been watching the children for 3 months. Oliver was 8, serious, precise, the kind of child who processed things quietly and completely before he said them. Clara was 6, warmer, quicker, the particular energy of someone for whom the world was still primarily a source of delight. They were good children. She had also been watching Victoria. She had seen it the second Tuesday. James had been at a conference, his real self, in his real capacity, and Victoria had arrived at 2 o'clock with the warm smile. She brought 2 rivals and had sat with the children for the particular performance of a woman who understood that the children were the audience that mattered. At 4 o'clock, James had called to say he would be delayed. Victoria had received this information with the composed smile of someone who was managing a disappointment. Then she had gone to find Mrs. Patterson, the cook, and had requested that the children's dinner be served early and that they be in bed before James arrived, because she had plans for the evening that did not include managing children. Mrs. Patterson had said yes. Grace, cleaning the corridor, had heard it. She had gone to the children. Oliver had asked, with the quiet precision of a child who understood more than adults assumed, why they were having dinner early. Grace had said, because it's Tuesday, and Tuesday is early dinner. Oliver had looked at her. That's not true, he said. No, she said, but it's dinner. She had eaten with them. She had read to Clara afterward, which was not her job, which was nobody's job, because the previous arrangement had assumed Victoria would do it on the Tuesdays she was present, and the arrangement had not been revisited when it became clear that Victoria was present only in the technical sense. She had said nothing to James. She had not known, then, how to say it. She had known, then, that she needed to wait. The second time was worse. Oliver had spilled something, a glass of juice, the particular accident of an 8-year-old who was carrying something too large and had misjudged the distance. It had gone on Victoria's dress. The dress was expensive. Victoria had not raised her voice. She had done something worse. She had looked at Oliver with the specific cold expression of someone who has shown you, in an unguarded moment, who they are when the performance is interrupted. And she had said, "That will be cleaned from your father's allowance for you, since you can't seem to manage basic tasks." Oliver had gone very still. Clara had started to cry. Victoria had told Clara that crying was manipulative and that she should stop. Grace had come in with a cloth. Victoria had said, with the warm smile restored, "Grace, would you mind? Such a little accident." Grace had cleaned the floor. She had looked at Oliver. Oliver had looked back at her with the expression of someone who understood that what had just happened was not the first time and would not be the last. "Thank you," he had said. Very quietly. "You're welcome," she had said. The same way she told him on a Thursday morning. He was in the south garden. She had brought the tea again, which had become the morning ritual. The particular arrangement of two people who understood each other. Without having discussed the understanding, she set the cup beside him. She did not walk away this time. "The juice incident," she said. He looked at her. "Last Thursday," she said, "Oliver spilled juice on her dress." She told him the cleaning cost would come from his allowance. She paused. "He's 8. James was very still. "And Clara cried," Grace said. Victoria told her crying was manipulative. He looked at the garden. "How long?" he said. "Have you known?" "Since your first day," she said. "You've known for 2 weeks," he said. "That I'm—" "Yes," she said. "And you said nothing." "I was waiting," she said, "to see what you were looking for, and whether you were going to find it. And you were looking in the right place," she said. "But you weren't seeing the children." He turned to look at her. "I was watching Victoria," he said. "I know," she said. "The children needed someone watching them." He was quiet for a long moment. "Tell me everything," he said. "From the beginning." She told him. She had been keeping notes. Not formally. In the small notebook she carried, the one that was her personal record. The one she had started keeping 3 months ago, when she had understood that what she was seeing required documentation. She gave it to him. He read it in the south garden, with the particular focused attention of a man receiving information he had needed, and had not known he was missing. 3 months of Tuesdays and Thursdays. The early dinners, the cold expressions, the specific language Victoria used when James was not in the room. Not shouting, not dramatic cruelty, the more precise unkindness of someone who knew exactly how much they could do, without leaving visible marks, the way Oliver had learned to be very quiet when Victoria arrived, the way Clara had stopped bringing her drawings to show Victoria after the 3rd visit. After the particular response, there had been not unkind and not interested. The particular nothing that a 6-year-old understood without being able to name. He read to the end. He closed the notebook. "Why didn't you tell me?" he said. "I didn't know you," she said. "For the first 2 months. You weren't here. You were—" She paused. "You were James Whitfield, who I could not simply call and say, 'Your fiancé is unkind to your children.' I didn't know if you would believe me. I didn't know if it would reach you. I didn't know what the consequences would be for the children if I said something and it made things worse. And then I arrived," he said. "And then you arrived," she said, "as a gardener, and I understood that you were looking for the same thing I had already found." He looked at the notebook in his hand. "You protected them," he said, "for 3 months, without being asked. They needed someone to," she said. "That seemed sufficient reason." He looked at her. "It is," he said. It's the only reason that matters. He confronted her that evening, not as Daniel, as James, in his study, with the notebook on the desk between them and the particular calm of someone who had been lied to before and had learned that emotion was a luxury he could not afford in these conversations. Victoria looked at the notebook. She looked at him. The warm smile appeared, the particular smile. He now understood. That was the first tool in the kit. James, she said. Whatever she told you, the allowance, he said, for spilled juice. From an 8-year-old. He needs to learn. Crying is manipulative, he said. To a 6-year-old. She was quiet. Victoria, he said. I've been in this garden for 2 weeks. I've been watching. But Grace has been watching for 3 months. He held her gaze. She wrote it down. The smile disappeared. What replaced it was the expression Grace had described. The cold, precise expression of someone whose performance had been interrupted. The maid, Victoria said. Yes, James said. The maid. You're going to believe a maid. I'm going to believe, he said. A person who spent 3 months watching my children and protecting them and documenting what she saw and giving it to me when she understood I was finally in a position to do something with it. He paused. That's not a maid. That's a person of exceptional character. Victoria looked at the notebook. The wedding is not happening, he said. The engagement is ended. My solicitor will handle the arrangements. You should leave tonight. She left. The house was very quiet afterward. James sat in his study for a long time. Then he went to find his children. He found them in the east garden. Grace was with them. She was often with them in the evenings. He had come to understand, in the particular way of someone who had decided that being present was what the situation required, and had arranged her own time accordingly. Clara was showing Grace something, a drawing, held up with the particular pride of a 6-year-old who had made something and wanted it seen. Oliver was sitting beside them with a book, reading with one eye on his sister in the way of an older sibling, who monitors without being obvious about it. James sat beside them. Clara showed him the drawing. It's the garden, she said. The south garden. With Daniel. James looked at the drawing. Daniel, the gardener version of himself, was depicted with the specific accuracy of a 6-year-old who had been paying close attention. The faded jacket, the particular posture. It's very good, he said. I know, Clara said. I gave Daniel one already. He put it in his pocket. James had put it in his pocket. Papa, Oliver said, not looking up from his book. Single quotes, yes. Is Victoria coming back? He looked at his son. Oliver was looking at his book, but the book had not turned a page in the time James had been sitting there. No, James said. She isn't. Oliver turned a page. Good, he said, very quietly. Clara had gone back to her drawing. Grace was looking at the garden. Grace, James said. Yes, thank you, he said, for the tea and the notebook and the 3 months. She looked at him. They're good children, she said. They deserved someone paying attention. Yes, he said. They did. He looked at Oliver, still reading, the page finally turning, and at Clara, who was adding something to the drawing with the focused intention of someone who had decided it needed one more detail. So did their father, Grace said quietly. Apparently. He looked at her. Apparently, he said. He stopped being Daniel on a Friday. Not abruptly, the south garden needed finishing, and James Whitfield, it turned out, had developed a genuine interest in the roses along the eastern wall that he intended to pursue, which Richards received with the expression of someone who had seen everything in 15 years and was no longer surprised by anything. He told Oliver on a Saturday morning. Oliver listened with the focused attention he brought to everything important. I know, Oliver said. James looked at him. Since the 3rd day, Oliver said. You hold the trowel like someone who learned it from a YouTube video. James looked at his 8-year-old son. He stopped. That's fair. Why did you do it? Oliver said. Because, James said, I needed to know who people were when they thought I wasn't watching. And I found out, James said. About Victoria, Oliver said. Yes. Grace knew, Oliver said. She was always there when Victoria was there, making reasons to be near us. I know, James said. She's good at noticing things, Oliver said. Yes, James said. She is. Oliver looked at the garden. Papa, he said. Yes. Don't lose her, Oliver said. Brace. He paused with the particular pause of an 8-year-old finding the right words. She makes things better, in the way that's not a performance. James looked at his son. Yes, he said. She does. He put on old clothes. He drove to his own estate in a van. He became Daniel the gardener. He was looking for the truth about one person. He found the truth about two. The fiancée, who was warm in public and cold in private and unkind to children who could not protect themselves. And the maid, who had been watching for 3 months, who had kept notes, who had eaten dinner with the children and read to them at bedtime and stood in the corridor when she was not needed there, because she understood that needed and necessary are different things. She did not do it because it was her job. It was not her job. She did it because the children needed someone and she was there. Here is what we learned. You cannot always see what people are when they know you are watching, but you can always see what they are when no one is watching. Watch the people who are kind when there is nothing to gain, who stay when no one asked them to, who keep notes not because someone will read them, but because what is happening deserves to be recorded. Those people, the ones who are exactly themselves regardless of who is in the room, those are the ones worth keeping. Oliver knew it at 8 years old. Don't lose her. She makes things better, in the way that's not a performance. That is everything.